Senator Marsha Blackburn, she serves on the Armed Services Committee. Senator, good to see you this afternoon. Forgive the noise behind me. They're still doing the construction project here. We heard from former Vice President Mike Pence today in a video in which he slammed the Democrats for drawing a false equivalence between Israel and Hamas. In part, the former vice president said, instead of seeking peace through strength, President Biden has offered weakness and ambivalence. And tragically, our friends in Israel are paying a terrible price. President Biden yesterday in a phone call with Benjamin Netanyahu, who did express his support for Israel's right to respond, but also urges a ceasefire. Do you believe he's being strong enough here in support of Israel?
I do not think he's being strong enough in support of Israel. Israel is our ally. They are longest and strongest. They are a beacon of democracy there in the Middle East, and President Biden should be more forceful. You know, John, I think that what you have is some of these organizations like Hamas, a terrorist group. We have recognized them as a terrorist organization for about 20 years now. And what President Biden needs to realize is whether it's Hamas or Hezbollah, or for that matter, China, they are going to test him. Right now, he is perceived as being a weak leader. He is perceived as not making decisions himself. And so you're going to have people test him, and that is what we see going on. He should let it be known the United States will stand without reservation with the nation of Israel.
As you pointed out, the United States has designated Hamas a terrorist group. However, progressive members of the Democratic Party, members of the Squad, have said that it's Israel who are the terrorists. They've called Israel an apartheid state, accusing Israel of human rights abuses. Let's listen to just a little bit about what the Squad has said in recent days.
To read the statements from President Biden, you'd hardly know Palestinians existed at all.
Many members of Congress have instead fallen back on a blanketed statement defending Israel's airstrikes against civilians under the guise of self-defense.
The President and many other figures this week stated that Israel has a right to self-defense. But do Palestinians have a right to survive?
Clearly, there is a big split, Senator, in the Democratic Party when it comes to Israel. We have heard nothing from President Biden, though, to repudiate what members of his party have said.
Which is disturbing that there is not a repudiation of these remarks. And when you see the left and the progressives, the socialists lining up and supporting a terrorist organization, of course, there should be a repudiation of that. You're also seeing some of the mainstream media that is coming out, MSNBC, doubting whether Hamas is a terrorist organization. You have the Washington Post, seems to be a little bit upset that not enough Israelis have died in this. What we have to realize is there is not a moral equivalent between Hamas, a terrorist group, and Israel, that is a nation. And the Vice President Pence, in his remarks today, was very accurate on that point.
Senator, something going on right now. This hour up there on Capitol Hill is a joint hearing on whether or not there should be a boycott of next year's Winter Olympics in Beijing. In a joint statement, a number of human rights groups on behalf of the Uyghurs and others said, quote, participating in the Beijing Olympic Games at this time would be tantamount to endorsing China's genocide against the Uyghur people and legitimizing the increasingly repressive policies of the totalitarian Chinese regime. Should there be a boycott, Senator? Should the president speak out on this?
The president should speak out on this. Beijing should be held accountable for this atrocious behavior that they have displayed. And of course, we should boycott those Olympics, do the Freedom Games here in our country so that our athletes can compete. Likewise, when it comes to international organizations like the WHO and the UN, China should be blocked from membership and participation in these organizations. We should be returning manufacturing to the USA and getting it out of China. We should end this soft propaganda that China practices, the Chinese Communist Party practices through sister cities and through Confucius institutes and Confucius classrooms. They should be held to account. They need to know that the world is watching and that they cannot continue to commit a genocide against the Uyghurs and not be held to account for this.
And we'll be watching that hearing going on this hour on Capitol Hill. Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee, thanks so much for being with us. Appreciate it.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
And Sandra,